Thanks for tuning in to more NASCAR coverage on Prime Sports NASCAR. Eric Smith from RaceReviewOnline.net has decided to leave us and take the week off again. So we have forced him to come back next week on his own. CJ is back solo and was the one that decided, well, Eric is going to have to do the show on his own next week because I'm sick of doing these shows all by myself with Greg DePalma.
Yeah, Eric is taking advantage of the Indy 500 press conference today, which I think if I'm breaking news that he's now hearing on the line, it's that they are actually allowing fans back this year, 135,000. And I think that's the biggest crowd to be at a sporting event since the pandemic started. So why not have a press conference last minute to announce that?
It is last minute. That was the one thing I was gonna ask Eric. It's like, okay, I understand you got to do this press conference, but like they gave you a half-hour notice.
I got the exact same press release he did, an invitation that he did, and it was literally half an hour notice. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, come on.
It's very rare. Usually they give you at least 24 hours in advance so you can plan your day ahead. There are very few things that come the same day, let alone, within the hour. So I'm not sure why this one was so late, probably because they had some national news breaking as a result after going through the political hamster wheels, I guess, or the maze to get it approved. So wanted to get it out there, I presume. So,
well, I mean, it's nice that they're going to have a full crowd, but what else does that mean? Did you also mention that they're going to do what, testing?
Well, it's not a full crowd, so they can fit well over 200,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, fit a couple 100,000 people in there, so it's not a full crowd. It is a big crowd, but they're also going to have, everybody's going to have to wear masks while they're on the grounds. They're going to have temperature checks to get in, all the standard social distancing, et cetera, et cetera. But in addition to that, I think they're also announcing that they're going to have mass vaccination site set up there so you can get your vaccine while you're watching the race. And I think it's going to be open for the entire month of May, which it's good. They've got the facilities to do so and the infrastructure to do it. So why not?
Okay. Yeah. And look, this is something that I'm not surprised about because look, we can sit here all day and talk about the politics of it, and I think anybody with a brain that does any research realizes that this mask stuff at this point in time is just ridiculous. So, but I do think that if we're talking about the difference of having the opportunity of having like 75% fan base at any sporting event around the country, but you have to be vaccinated, you have to wear a mask, any of the things that they say that you have to do, then I'm okay with it. Because I just rather see that as a sports fan than to see 20% fan attendance. I mean, I just would rather see it.
I agree with taking the steps necessary to be able to get people back in. I disagree with the mandates that you either have to have a vaccine or you have to prove whatever. If you want people to, if you're going to take that route, then just do a quick test with everybody. If you're negative, hey, yeah, come on, be and we'll do full capacity.
Why can't they do a test? Why can't they do a test right away?
I have no idea. They have those rapid tests. Probably just getting 200,000 of them together to be able to do is probably the logistical piece of that. But yeah, I agree. I'm willing to take the steps that we need to be able to start opening things up. I think it's well past time that things do open up. We had the Texas Rangers game with a full capacity. We've seen the states that have gone away from the mask mandates, and they're at the lowest levels yet. Politics aside, we seem to be on the back end. Yeah, there are variants, but guess what? There are variants of the flu every single year as well.
And it's not going to change.
Exactly right. Exactly right. It's never going to change. Just let's get back to doing our lives. Let's make our own decisions and let's be smart about what we do.
Easier said than done when it comes to politics. We know that.
Absolutely.
But it's a good step in the right direction. So
yeah, it is. I'm excited to have 100,000 fans. I mean, last year watching it, not in the month of May with absolutely nobody in the stands. It was
terrible.
It was awkward.
And so you think then that they'll get a full house based on what
I
they
think,
can allow?
yeah, I think
Okay,
they'll sell out
great.
the tickets that they've allotted.
See, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely.
That's why. Just
Yep.
keep doing this anywhere and everywhere that you have to. And maybe every state could be different, a little bit more lenient, that kind of thing. But this is a good step in the right direction. Somebody had to make that first step, and I'm glad it's Indianapolis. So,
yep.
Good for them. All right. Now, let's talk auto racing. I had this conversation on another YouTube channel, the little comment conversation with someone because if we had done a post race show on Sunday, or if we actually did a show that we were watching live and I watched Denny Hamlin choke that one away, even though it lost to my driver, my fantasy driver, which I was happy about. But I lost $300 because Denny Hamlin choked that away. And so I didn't write on the comment the same day, a couple of days later. So I wrote on the comment, I think it was yesterday, about Denny Hamlin. And I also said that Bowman, who stole the win, just like we had seen from Truex stealing the win the last couple of weeks. Because in Martinsville, I had Blaney and Hamlin. And in Richmond, I had Hamlin and Logano. I was first and second in both races late. The caution comes out. Not one of those drivers, but both of those drivers wind up not coming in first, and someone comes in and steals the victory from me. Well, the guy who was commenting with me took offense to the word steal the win. And I guess this is something that had been talked about on some of the shows as well, because it was Letarte. He referenced Letarte saying something about, no, that's not, he didn't steal it. And I came back, I was like, crew chief is not going to say anybody stole a race. I mean, it's just not going to happen. They don't steal races. They earn races. And it wasn't a point of being a bad word. To me, a bad word is fluke. You fluked yourself to a win. You have no right winning. Justin Haley, that was a joke. You had no right. That shouldn't even be allowed. That's different. Drivers steal wins all the time, in my opinion. And I don't think that diminishes that. Of course, you have to give them credit. Of course, you give the team credit, the Bowman team credit for putting him in that position and then giving him a car that could grip the way that it did and give him the opportunity to pass Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano for the lead and hold on and win. That's not luck, but it's a steal because he didn't. What did he have? 10 laps? He led the whole race?
Laps.
10 laps.
Yes.
And he led the last 10. Anybody that leads the last 10 and wins, the last 15 and wins, the last 5 and wins, the last 1 and wins, steals a race. Especially when it comes to when it comes to a caution. See, Ryan Blaney, when he won a few weeks back against Larson, not so much a steal because it wasn't a caution situation. He just caught him. He eventually caught Larson. You can blame the length of the race, which definitely hurt Larson, but that wasn't a fluke. That wasn't a steal. That was Ryan Blaney coming hard, charging, and getting him and catching him. What we saw the last couple of weeks, if cautions don't come out, these two drivers, Truex and Bowman, do not win the race. So I don't know how you feel about it, but that's why I do use the term steal in these situations. I just don't think it's a dirty word.
I think the title of my race recap on Monday was Bowman steals the victory.
Oh, was it?
In Richmond. Yeah.
Okay.
So I completely agree. There were only two guys, I should say, that led fewer laps than Bowman on that day, and they both led 1 lap each. 314 of the 400 laps were led by Truex Logano or Hamlin.
Truex led. Truex led 107.
107, and Hamlin led 207. 49. Yep. Sorry. Yeah, I was right the first time. So 314 laps between Hamlin and Truex. With the race off of pit road after that caution, They didn't even talk about anybody other than Hamlin and Logano. And that was the race off of pit road, and they made up the front row for the restart, and that was it. I mean, had that caution not come out, you're 100% absolutely right. There is no way Alex Bowman would have been able to track them down, let alone make any kind of pass. He got the benefit of having a restart. It wasn't a fluke. You know, he was in the top 10 for both stages. So, yeah, you can say they earned the win, but I see no shame in calling it a stolen win. We've had flukes. We've had, I think there was a Formula One race a long time ago, like in 1996 or something. Olivier Panis won, and it's the only race he had ever won, and only 6 cars finished. And actually, the 6th car didn't actually finish. It dropped out on the last lap or something like that. So 5 some car. That was a fluke. All right. The Justin Haley one with the rain coming out, that was a fluke. Those things should not happen in all logical circumstances. But yeah, Bowman absolutely stole that victory without question.
Yeah, and it's really a big win for the team too, because we had talked about the fact that they were getting close. Things were working for them, and really most of the season, but they just 1 or 2 things had happened to the car at some point past the midway point of 5 of the races that just stopped any momentum they had or any chance to win. And it almost happened again because they went down a lap. I mean, they what was it? They had a penalty. What penalty was it that they took?
I can't remember what penalty it was, but it seemed like absolutely every single. I mean, Logano and Truex were just so dominant. They basically lapped the entire field. They were well inside the top 10 at multiple points, if I remember correctly. So you didn't even have to have any kind of real issue. You could have just been slow, though. I mean, Truex barely hung on to the lead lap when he had his pit infraction. He was extremely lucky not to have gone a lap down, but I mean, they were just tearing it up because there were so many long green flag runs, and that's what happens at a short track. You just get people trapped down laps and multiple laps. And so I don't recall specifically what Bowman's issue was, or what the penalty was, but I mean, that's just the nature of short track racing, and that very much goes to show you how dominant those 2 cars were. To have not won is a huge surprise, and you could see it on Denny Hamlin's face. I mean, Hamlin doesn't walk away. He's the best driver right now, and he's got the greatest streak going. He has yet to visit victory lane, but look at how dejected, upset he was. I would venture to say he was angry when he got out of the car and had to do that interview. I mean, he just looked pissed off, and he had every right to be, because that race was his, and that last caution just threw everything away for him.
Well, even look, and this is what I was saying about Hamlin choking the race away. I'm sorry, but you know, every restart you had no problem.
Yes.
Why do you have a problem? And it wasn't like, it wasn't like it was Bowman and Hamlin. It was Logano and Hamlin, and you let the 3rd place car beat you. I mean, come on! Don't tell me it was grip or the setup. I don't even know what he said in the post race because I didn't want to hear it. I saw his reaction.
I was too busy yelling at the TV that he had lost. I didn't hear what he said either.
And it's like, this is Denny Hamlin. This is why I can't count on him to win a championship. How do you do this? There's no way Martin Truex Jr. or some of these Joey Logano, if they had the car Hamlin had, there's no way they lose that race. No way.
Well, Logano's done it twice this year too, though. If you count Richmond, there was a race earlier this season where it was his to win, late caution restart. He got snookered as well, and that was another stolen race victory this year. Was it Phoenix? Was he in the lead in Phoenix on the late restart? Could have been.
He was second to Truex at Phoenix.
There you go.
Okay, and he won the 2nd stage now.
Yeah, but you're exactly right. I mean, Logano's delivered. Maybe we would like to see a little bit more consistency from him in situations like that. But you're right. Every time it comes down to Hamlin in that last race of the year or whatever, the make or break, it seems like he's not able to get it done. And kind of like Kyle Busch last year. At this point, he's angry. The pressure is on him. He wants to win. It doesn't matter how many runner-ups and top 3s he's had over the past few weeks. He's got to get that win, and he's watching those spaces go away. We've got this is going to be the 10th race. We've got 16 more races before the playoffs start, and we've got 8 different winners, so half the playoff field is already locked in.
Yep.
You can't keep doing that for the next 16 races and then expect to point your way in, even if you're Denny Hamlin finishing second or third.
So, and I would have liked, we said this last week when Eric had his, I forget it was, he had the update on his computer. I don't know how I don't know how that works.
About that.
Eric's got to get his computer situation straightened out. You're not supposed to allow updates to just update without you. But anyway, so his transmission was lost last week, and we were both wondering why he took Bowman.
Yeah.
And we were like, he didn't do anything at the track. There was no history there, but we couldn't ask him. And I was going to ask him today, and then he couldn't make it. So, but he hit Bowman last week as his long shot at 33-1 or something like that.
Yep.
So that was a big one for Eric. He's having a strong season. As I mentioned, Bowman's on my fantasy team, so I finally won my second week of the year, and I needed that for sure. You know, I'm thinking drivers like Ryan Blaney are probably looking at Denny Hamlin and going, man, I wish I had your team. I wish I had the way that they get you out in first place, every caution and this. It's like, I wish I had that kind of. So this is also what we talked about, is that sooner or later, these numbers you see from Hamlin are going to stop. We saw it last year with Harvick and some of the other drivers. Eventually, it will stop. And he will go through a race, a month maybe, of no top fives or whatever. It's going to happen. It always happens. And if he does not gain his momentum back by playoff time, I just don't see how he's going to be able to pull out a championship.
Well, it's a question that's happened over the past 3 to 5 years in the playoffs, is you've got to peak right at the right time.
Yep.
And it's just playoff start. And if you're not peaking, then you do it too early or you do it too late, you're out. Kyle Busch finally got on the horse when it was too late last year. Kevin Harvick was on the horse until it bucked him off too early.
Maybe this is going to be better for Kevin Harvick. Maybe he'll have a good second half.
It could be. It absolutely could be. But yeah, starting to worry about Hamlin, despite how great he's been. One other thing, this is completely aside. I am really sick of NASCAR.com. Every time they announce the starting lineup for that week's race, saying so-and-so nabs the pole, as if they were out on track racing for it. No, Denny Hamlin's got the pole. Come on. He's beating the of everybody else. There's no way he's not nabbing that pole. So,
and by the way, look, whether it's speed or not, the fact is that 12 of the last 13 winners at Talladega have started in the top 6 rows, which I'm kind of surprised about. Being such a lucky kind of race, Talladega. Look, speed always matters at every track, but at a track like Talladega, you would think there would be, a 15th, a 20th, a 30th mixed in, but starting position at Talladega definitely seems to be important. And even though Hamlin won the last time they raced at Talladega and he's not a Ford has won 9 of the last 11 races. So they sure have dominated at Talladega. We'll get into our picks regarding that in just a little bit. Also, just taking a wrap up from what happened last week. Byron again, another top 8, I believe it was. So that's now 8th or better in his last 7.
Yep. Hendrick's got speed. Byron is coming out to be the real deal, and I think we've seen that from him in the playoffs at the last couple of weeks of each season over the past couple of years. And with him, 8th, 6th, 4th, and 7th in the last 5 races. So he is definitely on a really good string of luck. Same thing with Alex Bowman. We had talked about him finally getting a little bit of consistency, showing a little bit more life, and then he comes through and wins. I think Hendrick's got a lot going on. Kyle Larson's been fast all season as well. So the question is, where's Chase Elliott?
Yeah.
When's he going to come?
He's third. He's behind Bowman right now because of the win. And I'm just saying theoretically he's behind Bowman and Byron.
Yep.
Byron for points, Bowman because Bowman's got to win. So yeah, that's kind of weird. And let me see here, just to double check. Oh, Eric did take Elliott, but then again, I think Eric's got 28 drivers this week. No,
he took a bunch.
We all took a bunch. It's Talladega. We'll get into that in just a minute. All right, and just taking a glance now at the standings. Let's see if what I noticed the most. Big sixth place finish for Almirola. He's still
Yes.
27th, but Eric, who has Almirola on his fantasy team, did talk about hanging on to him for a couple more weeks because Talladega was coming up. This is a big track for
Hmm.
Almirola, and he gets the sixth before Talladega. So
Hmm.
he needs to have a top 10 this week in order for him to gain some momentum. Other than that, uh, you know, Custer's done nothing all year. We talked about Briscoe not doing anything. Reddick is starting to do a little better. Bubba hasn't done anything. It is what it is. McDowell has kind of looked like the old McDowell after a hot start to the season. But now we're starting to get to the point of the schedule where things matter now. Now
Hmm.
it's kind of put up or shut up time. We're getting into the meat of the regular season.
Yeah, I was just going to say this is the meat of where people are going to get it done, and they're going to have to be consistent. They're going to have to get results, and you can have your early season luck, and you can have your your flukes or your steals or whatever. But if you want to make the playoffs, you've got to persevere throughout these summer months and these races. When you hit a ton of 1.5 mile ovals, you've got a couple of super speedways built in. We've got a couple unique tracks coming up as well, I think, too, in terms of the road courses coming up. We got Darlington, Circuit of the Americas, May 23rd. So you're going to have to get the job done. And like I said, you've got, 8 different drivers now out of the top 16 playoff spots, and they're basically locked in at this point. If you get four more unique winners, we've got 16
We might
races
have
left to go.
somebody that may
Exactly
have to
right.
win a race.
Exactly
Yeah.
right. And you're going to have somebody like a Chase Elliott if they're
Or a
winless. I
Kyle
mean,
Busch.
he's or Kyle Busch that's otherwise would have pointed their way
Yeah.
in are going to get knocked out by Michael McDowell, Christopher Bell, Alex Bowman.
And by the way, I like
These
that.
kind
I like the pressure
of
being added to win a race.
absolutely makes it interesting. And there's nothing I'd love to see more than the pressure really get on Hamlin and see him have to step up and deliver and then actually do it. Right.
Yeah, that
That
would
would
be
be good.
nice. Yes.
That would be a good thing.
Okay. Let me see. I would think this is the one week we're going to have multiple similar picks. All the picks we have here. So we all have Hamlin. We all have Almirola. We all have Stenhouse.
No surprise.
And we all have 3 long shots. Buscher, Wallace, and DiBenedetto.
Yep.
So those are the drivers we'll agree on. Look, for Hamlin, it's one of those things where I just know if I didn't pick him this week, he'd win. I know it. So I'm gonna pick him, and I'm just gonna kind of hedge with him more than anything. It's like, okay, if you win, I'm not gonna make a lot of money off of you, but I am not going to lose money if you win after what you've done to me the last couple of weeks. So I have to take him. And it's not a bad idea to take him anyway, because he's been really strong here. 6th or better in 6 of his last 9, including that win last October I spoke about.
Yeah, Hamlin, he's got multiple wins here at Talladega. He's fast. He won last year. He's starting on pole. He's going to lead laps. I think the unique thing about Denny Hamlin, and this goes for all the Joe Gibbs racing drivers, and it same applies for Hendrick and same applies for Penske this week. What we've seen on the restrictor plate races, and I think Talladega especially, is the teaming up of teammates. He's going to find Kyle Busch. He's going to find Christopher Bell. He's going to find those Toyotas to work with. Bubba Wallace is going to be part of that pack as well. Same thing with DiBenedetto. He's going to tuck in with the Penske guys. And the Penske guys are always strong. That's why Ford's won so many times at Talladega. But we know Toyota is very strong as well. And they've got the speed package to be able to do it, assuming they're able to get together, stay together long enough without the crashes coming in, Hamlin's going to be there in contention to win. So it makes all the sense in the world to take him this week. And starting position at Talladega shouldn't mean a lot, and it doesn't mean a lot. But like you said, you've got to have the speed to be able to get things done. And if you've got the speed, you're starting in the first 5 to 6 rows for sure. When certainly Hamlin's got the speed this year.
Well, let's stick with the Joe Gibbs cars plus Bubba. And look, Truex, if he hadn't already have 2 wins, I might have put a couple of bucks on him because he's just so overdue for a win at a track like this, especially Talladega. I mean, but his average finish is 21.5. His average finish in the last 10 is 24.9. Throw in the fact that, again, he's had a couple of wins already. I just think the odds of him winning again is just maybe not this week. But you're talking about a driver who had won 3 out of 4 Xfinity races, Talladega. That's how strong he was here, which is so surprising that he's never won at Talladega before. But that's why I decided to pass on him, and we all passed on Martin Truex this week. Kyle Busch, meanwhile, he's 18-1, and I went with Kyle this week. I was the only one that did. And I know he's not hot, but at least he's got 5 top 10s in his last 7. And now he's at a luck track. So I figured maybe he could luck himself in. And he's a good driver at these tracks. He knows what he's doing. I know he's only won once. I get that. Average finish 20.9, not very good. But it's more of, I think, because I had stopped taking him last week when we talked about this for the exact, he's not really leading laps. He's not showing it. If he wins, it'll be lucky. And now we get to a lucky track. So that's why I decided if I'm going to take Kyle, I'm taking him at a lucky track, especially when he does have solid teammates that he's going to be able to draft with. And he's got really good odds at 18-1. Christopher Bell, meanwhile, you guys both added Christopher Bell to your list. I did not. Bell did not fare well here in his 2 Cup races. So he hasn't shown much in that department in his career at Talladega in both series. He was 4th, though, last week, and we know how strong a season he's having. And Bubba Wallace, as I mentioned, we all took Bubba Wallace. And why not? When he's in contention for a win, this is the type of racing that Bubba shows it. He had had a decent showing here last year and at Daytona. But again, if there's a chance for Bubba to win a race, this is it with the teammates he has, and he's 50-1.
Yeah, absolutely. Wallace, hands down, he was one of the names that I had written down before the odds came out. He was going to be on my list no matter what. And you got great odds for him. He's very good on the restrictor plate races. He seems to always be in contention. It's just a matter of him being able to make it to the finish and making the right move at the finish. I think we've seen him lose a win just because he didn't make the right move, but yeah. I think he's learned well. Certainly between Kyle Busch and Martin Truex Jr., Truex only has 2 top 5s at Talladega through 32 starts in the Cup Series. And it was probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I want to say, that I think Truex kind of lost his mojo on the restrictor plate races. There was a Daytona race where he did extremely well, but didn't come out and win. And then after that, it's been pretty much a lack of results, whether you go to Talladega or Daytona each week. So I do agree with you. I think Kyle Busch of those 2 is certainly the better choice. He's going to be, I think, able to make more confident decisions at the end. And like we said, he's going to need a lucky track to win. It's going to need to be a lucky situation. And there's no reason why luck can't happen here. And I guarantee you the reason that Eric and I both agreed on Christopher Bell is because of what he showed at Daytona. You're right. He has not shown anything at Talladega. He's only 2 starts, but he wasn't in a Joe Gibbs car at that time either. Get to Daytona, first restrictor plate track with Joe Gibbs Racing. He started 5th, only finished 16th, but he led how many laps? 32 laps that afternoon in Daytona 500. So no reason why with his teammates like Kyle Busch and Truex and Hamlin and everybody together up there, that he's not going to lead laps, and Wallace together, that he's going to be up there as well. So I think Christopher Bell certainly is my top pick of that bunch, but you can't deny Wallace. And then if you're debating between Busch and Truex, I would definitely go with Busch.
And the thing with Truex too, and if you are going to take him, he does seem to fare better at Daytona. Doesn't he have like a couple of runner-ups at Daytona?
Yeah, he's been much better at Daytona, it seems, for whatever reason. In these recent more high-powered teams, I think he's lost his touch at Talladega. I'm not exactly sure why, because it seems like these teams have better package, but it's been since before he was with Gibbs that, back then I would have chosen him every single time out, even at Talladega. But just since that one Daytona, where the last one where he was in contention and led a bunch of laps, which I think was 5 or 6 years ago now at this point, he just hasn't had the results since then. Hasn't been able to match it.
Next up is we move to Ford and Penske first. And I could easily understand if anybody just wanted to go, hey, I'm going to have an allotment of money and I'm just going to put it on the Ford drivers. And I'm going to put most of it on my top 3. I'll put some long shot money on a couple other guys. And there's a pretty good list of long shots too with Ford. Newman, Buescher, Di Benedetto, McDowell won the 500, so he's not winning this race.
Nope.
and you're getting double digits on Almirola. That Stewart-Haas group, though, that's just a long shot group that I still can't take. Because there's enough.
Yeah, I would 100% stay away from Stewart-Haas. It wasn't too long ago, also a similar story to Truex, that Kevin Harvick would have been one that you would have wanted to take at the restricted. But I mean, if you're looking at any Stewart-Haas racing driver this week, it's Almirola. It's pretty much no one else. Almirola is good. He had the good result last week. He's a great super speedway racer in the draft. Harvick has not shown anything at Talladega recently to get any kind of excitement about. And Cole Custer, like you said earlier, has been nowhere so far this season. So I just don't anticipate them, even if they hooked on to the back of Penske, I don't see them staying there for the full 500 miles.
Yeah, none of us took any of the drivers for Stewart-Haas except Almirola. And again, we all took Almirola. Officially, he's got 8 top 10s in his last 9 races at Talladega. I mean, that is hard to do at Talladega. 8 top 10s out of 9 with 5 top 5s and a win. And he was 3rd in one of the races last year, crashed in the other. So the only time he didn't finish in the top 10 is when he wrecked.
But he led 9 before crashing too. So
there you go.
I mean, he's fast. He knows how to navigate the draft. These are great tracks for him. Similar story to Stenhouse. I mean, this is a place, he's become the new Dale Earnhardt Jr. Of super speedways. He and Stenhouse, they're almost automatic must picks when you come to these two tracks.
And he's got to get a win. I mean, at this point, 27th in the point standings. I'm not so sure. I mean, you know how many top 10s you got to get back into top 16? A lot. So it may need a win. And this is the perfect track for Almirola to do it in a generous 15-1 number. Then you got the Penske drivers. And even if you just said, I'm just going to put them all on the Penske 3, that is good wagering advice. It's interesting. Logano, and Keselowski have got similar kind of trends. Last 3 for Logano haven't been none in the top 10 in his last 3. Keselowski's averaged 22.5 in his last 6. But if you look at before the two of them have these recent struggles, Logano, before his recent 3 struggle, had a run of 6 top 5s in his previous 8 with 3 wins. Keselowski, before his 6 bad races, had a run of 5 top 10s in his previous 7 with 3 wins. And here you got Blaney, win. Then you got the crash in there. So, but he's been 11th or better in 6 straight races on the season, including an 11th best all-time at Richmond. And how big was that for Ryan Blaney? As we said last week, it was just important for him to have a good result. And and he was in the top 10 all day, and he finished 11th. You're talking 9-1, 10-1, 11-1 with Logano, Blaney, and Keselowski. You guys took all three of them, basically hedging on all three. If you had to pick one of the three, who would it be?
Oh man, that's tough.
Keselowski is the one that's been struggling the most out of the three.
Yeah, I would put Keselowski third. I'd probably put Blaney second, and I'd probably put Logano on top. And it'd be really close between Logano and Blaney. And the only reason I would go with Logano over Blaney is because, exactly as I said, he's had a couple races stolen out from under him this year, and you could count the Daytona 500 as one of them because he and Brad Keselowski, if you remember correctly, were racing for the lead at that time that they crashed out, and that opened the door for McDowell to come through and win. So Blaney's got the more recent results, but look at Logano's laps led at Talladega. The last four times he's been here, 37, 16, 33, and 45, and he crashed out on the one where he was 45. So he gets out there and he gets out front. It's just a matter of making the right calls at the right time at the end and avoiding that crash. If he does that, he's going to be there. So I think I give the edge to Logano, but only barely over Blaney.
Yeah, Logano has led 94 laps in those last three races that he hasn't had a top 10. So that's why I agree with you. Logano, Blaney, and Keselowski. And as far as some of those other Ford long shots, Newman and Buescher. Now, both of you guys went with Newman. We all went with Buescher. I was going to go with Newman, but I just didn't have enough on the long shot money. So but I completely understand where you're going with Newman because even though he's never won a Talladega, he's got 5 top 10s in his last 7 with 2 runner-ups. So that's pretty good. But he's only led 11 laps in his last 12 races at Talladega. So he's basically trying to steal a win at Talladega, and he hasn't been able to do it. He's 30-1. It's a big number. And Buescher, who we all have, and his number is at 45-1. He was 6th in one of the races last year, led a combined 19 laps in both races last year, and has a 6th and a 2nd in 2 Xfinity Series races at Talladega. So Buescher, who's had some moments this season, this would be a track that he probably thinks he may have to win to get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think this is a good track for him to really go for the win as well. Like you said, he's gotten results here in the past. He's led laps as recent as last year, 19 laps led. That's no small feat. Newman doesn't typically get out front at the restrictor plate tracks for whatever reason. He seems to always be in contention and have really good finishes, but he's really more of that support role. And we saw it, when he won the Daytona 500. Same thing with I think he was teammates with Kurt Busch at that time as well for Penske. So those two guys, similar stories in that they're extremely good on these two tracks and they're great in the draft, but they're just for whatever reason not able to get out front and stay out front and pull the block off. They're much better at pushing and finding the right partners to be able to get to the win. So, any melee coming off the last turn, Newman's probably going to be in the top 5. He was almost in contention to win the Daytona 500 a year ago before that crash. He lost it off the last turn, right? So he's definitely got it, and he's got it with this organization and with this car, which is why I think you've got to kind of hedge your bets with him at a minimum. And we've seen this beat out of Roush so far this season, and Talladega is a place where they can put it to good use.
I know this is a story for another day, but just quickly, what's happened to Roush Racing?
This year?
No.
Or
for the past 5 years or so.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
What happened to them?
This year happens to be the anomaly.
Yeah.
They've.
Is it just management changes, funding? Was it any one thing?
I wish I knew, to be honest with you, because I felt like for 2-3 years before they finally started to get the results again, it was almost inexplicable because they have the organization, they have the money, they have the depth, and they have the experience to be able to do it. And I'm not sure if the driver changes have hurt them or if there have been other roles within the shop that have changed that I didn't notice or didn't know about that just caused things to back up. They were putting out extremely quick cars. They were always consistently fast.
What was it? It was when things were going well, it was like Kenseth, Edwards, and Biffle, right?
Correct. And, 2 years or a couple of years ago, more than 2 years ago, Biffle's gone, Edwards gone. And so you've got that driver change, Kenseth gone. And then you're struggling to find the right drivers. I just don't think that they had the right drivers to be able to develop the experience level to be able to develop the car and the organization that was necessary, and struggling to do that from the garage if you've not got the right people or if you've got turnover there as well. It's just impossible, and it takes forever to build back. And it's exactly what we've seen over the past few seasons.
They are showing signs this year, though. So
yes, they are.
Yeah.
They figured something out.
Yeah,
for sure.
Di Benedetto's the other Ford driver. We all have Di Benedetto at 66-1. The good thing about Di Benedetto, even though he hasn't shown much at this racetrack, again, it's a luck track. He's going to be with a lot of good drivers that he could work with. And if you look at it on the season, his first 3 races, his average was 32.6. His last 6 this season, his average finish is 12.5. So
with the top 10 last week. Yep. So he's got momentum at the right time. He knows he can race at these restrictor plate tracks, and he's been in contention for the lead at these tracks. He led 11 laps here last year, 10 laps in the fall race. So again, just stay out of trouble, leverage the momentum that you've got from last week, leverage that, or hook up with those Penske partners and leverage that partnership and get yourself to the front and have another good race 2 weeks in a row.
All right, let's talk about Chevy now. Elliott's the top one at 11-1. He's got a win in 2019, which is sort of like why I'm not sure this is the right week for Chase Elliott, just to win a second Talladega race in a couple of years. It's hard to do. It's just not going well for Chase Elliott this season. For whatever reason, something's just not. Every time it looks like he's about to take a step up, and here comes Chase Elliott next week, maybe a good week, and it just doesn't happen. So maybe it's just one of those things when you're a young driver trying to defend a championship.
Yeah, could be. You definitely get the winner's hangover per se, but it's not like Hendrick's been behind. No. It's not like LA itself has been behind either. I agree with you. I don't think this is necessarily the week that it's going to be for him. I think he's going to get it done on one of the more standard tracks, maybe a Darlington, maybe another 1.5 mile oval. But like Bowman, he's going to figure out what clicks or what slight change needs to happen in order to get it done. And once he does, I guarantee you he's going to be up there like Larson has been and like Byron has been as well. He's going to be really hard to stop once he figures out once the team figures out what they need to change.
He's led 108 laps in his last 4 races at Talladega. So, it's he knows what he's doing. It's just that timing wise, there's other options. And he's 11-1, which is one of the favorites. And that's another reason why it's maybe not the bargain that we're looking for. Then you have to go, let's see, we have to head to our next one is Bowman at 18-1. Yeah, Bowman 18-1, Byron at 20-1, and Larson at 22-1. So as far as the Hendrick drivers are concerned, these are better bargains. Now, Bowman winning a second race in a row is just not going to happen, especially at Talladega because it's a luck race. But he does have 3 straight top 10s at Talladega. I should say 3 straight top 10s in this race. So that's the interesting thing. If you want to take Bowman at Talladega this year, you take him this week at the GEICO 500, including a runner-up in 2018. Byron only has 1 top 10, but that was last year when he finished 4th, and he was 11th in the other race. And Larson, maybe not the week to take him, but you take Larson, it seems like every week now. On your picks, he's on your fantasy team. So he has 2 top 10s in 12 races, leading just 10 laps. But he's in a new car, new team, and he's 22-1.
Yeah, Larson wouldn't have been the name to top my list certainly this week. Bowman maybe would have been on that list if he hadn't won last week. But the one that without a doubt was on the list prior to seeing the odds again was Byron.
Yeah.
He knows these restrictor plate tracks really well. He's very good at them. And so, coming to Talladega, he's the right one to take. I agree with you. I'm not sure that Elliott's the right one this week. Certainly when he's going in, like you said, at 11-1, there are other better options, I think,
like
that
Byron.
I feel more.
You're getting double the money.
Exactly right. So if you eliminate Elliott and Bowman from that equation, Byron, without a doubt, hands down, just becomes the one to go with. And the reason why I'm going with Larson every single week is just because he's shown speed every single week. And regardless of whether he finishes in the top 5, top 10, or outside of the top 20 because he crashes, he's up in the top 5 at some point every single race. He just happens to be there all the time. And certainly at a place like Talladega, that's what you've got to do to come out and win. And his first race with Hendrick Motorsports was at the Daytona 500, and he finished 10th. And so he only led one lap that day, but it's a top 10 at a super speedway track where, Larson hasn't traditionally been the greatest super speedway racer. And come out with Hendrick and finish 10th. Hendrick's got speed. I think he and Byron are the two that you got to go with this week.
All right. And then, but we can have another long story about what happened to Richard Childress Racing.
Yes.
But this would be a good week probably to go with. I'm surprised I'm the only one who went with Reddick. So I went with Reddick.
I ran out of money.
There you go. And you and I both were the only ones who went with Dillon. So I went with both RCR drivers. Reddick was 7th in one of the races last year. And in the Xfinity Series, in 3 races, he does have a win. And he's starting to looking like signs of life this season now for Reddick too at 22-1. Dillon's at 33-1. He only has 3 top 10s in 15 races, leading only 2 laps. But he was strong in the Xfinity Series. He always seems to be, not always, but he seems to be around the mix in these types of races. It always, it seems like, maybe he'll. Does he have a win at Daytona?
Yes, he does.
Yeah, he's got a win at Daytona. And he's coming off a 10th place finish last week. So I agreed with you. We both took Dillon. Like I said, I was kind of surprised, but I am the only one to take Reddick this week. Like you said, though, there's only enough to go around.
Yeah, I would have taken Reddick if I had another couple of dollars left. 21 laps led, 7th place. It's 21 laps led in both races last year, 7th place in the fall race. I think Richard Childress Racing, number one, they've stepped up their 1.5, their other tracks, as I'll call them right now, their other tracks program. They've definitely stepped that up in the past 2 seasons, but they are always strong regardless of how they perform on those other tracks at Daytona and Talladega. Exactly like you said, Dillon is always seemingly in the mix in some form or fashion. He's top 5, top 10 whenever you're in the draft. He's very good at at being there all the time and very consistent. It's just a matter of getting to the finish here at Talladega for him. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 crashes out of his 15 starts and not a huge ton of success. His best place is a 3rd in 2016 at the track, but that doesn't mean that to me, that doesn't mean anything at Talladega. Everybody's stats suck at some point at Talladega.
Yep.
If you're a good restricted racer, you're going to show it. And Dillon is one, Reddick is one as well. So I think Richard Childress is a good bet this week. Either one. Excellent choices.
All right. Also rounding out the Chevys, you have Kurt Busch, and taking a look here, did anybody take Kurt Busch?
I didn't see it.
Nobody took Kurt Busch. At 16-1. Kurt Busch has never won a race at Talladega. He just won a couple of years ago at Daytona for the first time. Even though he's always been a good restricted plate driver. So it's not like he doesn't know how to drive at these tracks. He's just never had any luck. But he's just not having a good season, Kurt Busch.
Yeah, and that's why I didn't select him. He's one like Ryan Newman that I said is whenever you're at a restrictor plate race, they're very good racers, but he's just not one that can come out and be out front for whatever reason. He plays a better supporting role. He did finish 9th in his duel at Daytona earlier this season, but he finished 22nd in the 500. And I feel like since that win at Daytona, it's almost to me like he's taken a slight step backward in his ability to race on these restrictor plate tracks. And I don't know how much of it is luck or how much of it is that he finally achieved his goal and got the monkey off his back of being called the most successful or the best restrictor plate racer without a win. Maybe when he got that off his back, he's like, okay, I'm done, on to bigger and better things.
Yeah.
So I feel like he's almost taken a step back. With his season this year, I think Childress has got a little bit more power than Ganassi at this point. He doesn't have a great teammate to be able to push him or So he's going to have to find other people, and that's really tough to do when the strategy at these tracks now is solely to go with your teammates.
He doesn't have a top 10 in his last 6 races this season. Also at 16-1 is Ricky Stenhouse Jr. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is one of those drivers we have all wagered on this week. 9 top 10s, 6 top 5s, and a win in 15 career races. This is one of, if not his best track. He was second in one of the races last year here. We've been talking about him the last couple of weeks as, I don't think there's any question, this is the best start to any season Ricky Stenhouse has ever had in the Cup Series. If he's had a win in another year, whatever, but this is just no doubt this has been his most consistent start to any season. And so if he's going to get a win, maybe this is the week, along with his consistency, to get it done. And he'll find somebody. You know, he doesn't have an actual teammate, but he's got enough Chevys out there. He'll hook up with someone.
He doesn't need teammates. He's so aggressive at Daytona and Talladega. He makes his own path regardless of who's in front of him. He'll hang anybody out to dry. He'll tag people, block them. It doesn't matter. He'll get it done. So I'm not worried about the teammate situation with him. He's within the points or within the playoff position in the points right now. Like you said, having a great start to the season. He's punching above his weight, and he's come into a track that he has a ton of confidence. So give him the confidence of already being in a playoff position within the points and how he's starting the season, and then throw him in at Talladega too. Last fall, he didn't have much because he crashed so early on, and I think that was that was a fluke. Prior to that, he had led 16, 32, and 5 laps in the 3 prior Talladega visits before crashing up on lap 8 in the fall race. So he's going to be very good. He's always good at these tracks. So definitely not one to count out. He's almost a have to play.
All right. And then also Eric Jones, who will be, for Richard Petty, 5th and 2nd last year in both Talladega races at 40-1. That was a reason why I decided to throw a couple of bucks on Jones.
Yep, led 13 laps in the runner-up finish as well. So, and plus, Wallace was in that car prior to Eric Jones, and Wallace has always done well at the restrictor plate track. So, Petty can get it done regardless of them being behind the ball on all the other tracks. So, Eric Jones certainly is very good at this track with 2 top 5s in both races last year. The 13 laps led, plus we know Penske is not going to be behind the ball here. So Jones is another good play.
And then finally, the other long shots, I put a couple of bucks on Suarez. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
And Eric likes to put money on LaJoie. I don't know why. But...
Yeah, I would not put money on LaJoie, but I can see Suarez. In fact, I would have liked to. Suarez is another one that if I had another dollar or two, I would have put it on him for sure. He's shown at times to have the pace, even with the new team this year. And we know he's pretty good in the draft. He's got a 10th place finish from 2018 in this race. In 8 starts, that's his only top 10, but he's pretty good at the draft. So hooking up with some good teammates, and I think he'll be pretty good this week as well.
And next week is Kansas, then Darlington, and then Dover before we get a road course. So
correct. And no night races until we go to Charlotte at the end of May, last weekend in May.
And Kansas, how's that race?
Kansas is actually pretty good from what I recall. I think the track surface is a little bit worn, so you get that tire wear down. It becomes a little bit more about the grip and the tire wear. It's not processional from my recollection, so hopefully we have a good one.
Denny Hamlin won. What did they race twice there, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Hamlin and Logano won at Kansas. We'll talk about that next week. Eric and I will talk about that.
The second race playoffs.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
And then you'll be back for
I'll be back the following week. Yeah. I'll be back for Darlington. Exactly.
And
right.
in the meanwhile, RotoWire, what do you got cooking?
RotoWire.com. We will have the fantasy preview for the Xfinity race as well as the Cup Series race coming up.
Xfinity race for Talladega.
Exactly.
Who should we like in the Xfinity race for Talladega?
Good question. I think Austin Cindric is a good one, but pretty much that entire field. I look at the Dale Earnhardt Jr. cars; they're very strong. Honestly, I think it's going to be Cindric or Gregson. To be honest with you, if both of them can get to the end, it'll be a shootout between them. Allgaier perhaps could come in and steal one as well. We'll see. But those three guys, but I would put Gregson and Cindric at the top of my list right now.
When do you have everything available? Is that Friday?
Those will be out. We'll have the recap of the Cup race sometime on Monday.
All right, CJ, great job as always. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.